good reviews at all. Many people had them next to the Philadelphia 76ers as possibly battling for the worst record in the league, and many people had them in the as low as 16 wins to mid-20s range. Nobody really had them higher. But after a really good start to the season, by about mid-December, it became evident that the team was a lot better than people had predicted and might even be able to battle for a playoff spot. So it was a surprise back then in November, but now that they've maintained it for so long, it's not really a surprise anymore. It has changed to a certain extent. They're still kind of a secret in terms of the national eye. Unless you're a pretty dedicated fan of NBA basketball, you might still not know a lot about the Phoenix Suns. The casual fans still haven't heard a lot of them. They haven't been on national TV for many appearances this year, and they don't have any bona fide superstars in terms of the public eye. But they did have a very good showing on ESPN against the Indiana Pacers just recently, where they kind of decimated them. And I think that raised some awareness. And even on a national level, there has been a kind of a push, some publicity for Goran Dragic to be an all-star, that hopefully he'll get selected by the coaches to be a reserve. A lot of people didn't expect them to play that well together. This two-point guard system that Jeff Hornacek and GM Ryan McDonough on the Suns envisioned hasn't been something that a lot of teams have run. Now, both players are very athletic. Both players play good defense, can get in pass lanes, play defense that way that can start the fast break. Both players can distribute very well, and it seems like they've been able to improve their game to where they can play off the ball, especially Goran Dragic when Eric Bledsoe has been on the floor as the primary playmaker. Dragic has very well stepped into that role of the off guard to where they can still function, coexist on the court together. That's a pretty lofty goal to shoot for. Steve Nash obviously won two MVPs during his time with the Phoenix Suns. He became a very beloved player during that time with the 7 seconds or less Suns that was a contender for a championship for several years in that window. To reach that kind of ceiling on a level in terms of production, numbers, awards is going to be something that Goran Dragic probably can't meet. He, like I mentioned before, might be an all-star this year. That would be his first appearance. And he is still a fairly young player, but a lot of players have kind of met their flow, have reached their athletic peak, and don't improve a ton after his age, although Nash was a late bloomer. He does have a chance to really capture the hearts of fans if he can continue this play and if the team can get back to competing at a high level. And in that pantheon of Suns guards, with Kevin Johnson and Steve Nash being near the top, I could see Goran definitely entering the discussion and being part of an exclusive group, at least, of great point guards in the Phoenix Suns franchise history. I think that the nod there would still have to go to Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson. Curry and Thompson lead the NBA in three-pointers made this season and score a little bit better than a combination of Dragic and Bledsoe. They seem like they can catch fire a little bit better and go on a really hot streak. Both of them are very streaky shooters. Curry is averaging about 24 points and a little over 9 assists a game this year, so he is one of the very elite top point guards in the NBA right now. with Goran being just a step below him. And with Bledsoe's injuries, that has kind of been detrimental to their ability to be in that discussion because they haven't had the time on the court to develop more of the chemistry that they'd need to be considered maybe that top guard duo in the league. Now, Gerald Green was a great pickup for the Suns this offseason, and he has done a very good job, admirable job of filling in, but he is not a player the caliber of Eric Bledsoe. So he has tried to meet that production and has actually done a good job of replacing a lot of what Bledsoe did as a starter. But then you also have the fall off the bench in terms of not having the backup there. They've tried to kind of fill that with a signing of Leandro Barbosa that's joined the team, but obviously there's a little bit of a talent drop off from Bledsoe to Green, and then, like I said, then you have the bench weakening a little bit with Green entering the starting lineup. Now, Green has helped the team a lot. He has seemed like he's become a lot more focused on playing to his strengths this year. Part of his problem in the past has been poor decision making, and this year he's adapted very well to his role as a three-point shooter, which he can be very prolific at. He's very streaky in that capacity and can kind of catch fire and hit several three-pointers in a row and carry a team for a little bit at those stretches. So Green has done a very good job for the Suns, but they still definitely miss Eric Bledsoe. We weren't sure what to expect exactly because he was coming off of an ACL injury and hadn't been playing competitively. He had just started playing in a international league and had played just a couple games when the Suns picked him up and signed him to a 10-day contract. So it was hard to know exactly what we'd get out of him, but right away when Leandro stepped on the court, he took up his old role, his previous nickname of the Blur, and he showed that he still had the ability to get to the basket at will. He still had a great first step and quickness and ball handling ability to be able to move past defenders. What he is still trying to work on a little bit is his ability to finish at the rim once he gets there. But he has definitely been a welcome addition and should provide some scoring off the bench to help a unit that doesn't have a lot of guys that can necessarily create their own offense. Ton of credit. He should be right at the top in the running for Coach of the Year. He has seemed like he's really gotten the best out of all these players and has developed a great cohesiveness. The locker room is very close, very tight, and the players have a very convivial, close knit type of presence in there. They get along really well. He, before the season, he had said that he thought that every player on this team could shoot a higher percentage than they did last season, and that was something that they were going to be working on with them. And pretty much across the board, they all have. You've seen a lot of improvement. He's taken a bunch of guys that had struggled in previous stops or hadn't really produced, guys that were still young, guys like Plumlee who hadn't had a really chance to show off his skills, guys like Green who had had rough patches in their careers, and he's brought them all together. Even of returning players, the Markeith and Marcus Morris, they've grown through leaps and bounds. So Hornacek, he deals with the media very well. He deals with the players very well. He has a lot of composure, sang-froid. So he's done a great job, and the fans in Phoenix couldn't be happier with the new addition of him as the head coach of this team. That might have been a little bit due to small sample size. The team has played good enough defense. This is actually still one of the best defenses the Suns have had in quite some time. They only had one season actually during that 7 seconds or less era where they were around the same level of defensive efficiency as they are this season. And it's actually been over a decade since they had numbers that really exceeded the level where they're at right now. Part of what has maybe hurt that defensive efficiency for the team this year has been the absence of Bledsoe, who has missed quite a bit of time to injuries. Bledsoe is a very good defensive guard, so not having him on the court is going to hurt you right there. Like we had talked about Gerald Green trying to replace some of Bledsoe's production, Gerald Green is somewhat of a weak defender. So by taking off a very, very good defender and replacing him with that, that might have a little bit to do with the drop-off there. I think part of the reason is because it wasn't very well suited to playoff basketball. It's very entertaining, and the fans love it. People like points, people like the fluidity of it, they like the movement, the frenetic pace. It's very exciting to watch. You get more fast breaks, which leads to more dunks, more of the kinds of exciting plays that people like to watch during the games. But during the playoffs, when things seem to tighten up a little bit and the officiating seems to be more weighted to defenses, gives them somewhat of an advantage because some of the calls that were made during the regular season now aren't called, and the defenses are allowed to play a more physical brand of basketball. And so that was one of the failings of the Phoenix Suns during that time, and their inability to make it to the finals and win a championship, I think steered some of these other teams away from trying to emulate that type of basketball because they saw that teams like the San Antonio Spurs, who played a more defensive brand of basketball and were more physical and tough, were teams that the Suns really struggled against. They really can only play the style that they're built to play right now, which is the more up tempo pace. They've really struggled when they've gotten slowed down this year. They've had several losses to teams that slowed the ball down, that play at a slower pace, rebound the ball a little bit better. So the Suns want to keep that up tempo pace. They lead the NBA in fast break points this year, and part of that lets them get some easy points. They also like to shoot the three. They are right at the top of the NBA in three-pointers attempted. They attempt a lot of three-pointers per game. So that's their game, and sometimes you live and die by the three there. And jump shooting teams, the Suns have at times failed to rebound very well. And if they can play at least above average defense and they can finish those defensive possessions with rebounds, then they should still be able to compete come playoff time. They've actually already had some success against teams like the Portland Trail Blazers, who are right near the top of the Western Conference. They've beat them a couple times, and they've played Oklahoma City and San Antonio very well, very closely. So they have a chance playing the type of ball that they have so far this year if they play well and can force their kind of tempo and their pace, their style of game to be competitive in the playoffs and at least give some of these teams a run for their money. Yeah, what first, one of the things that's going to be really important is the health of Eric Bledsoe, whether he is going to return and be healthy and be able to play at the level he did earlier in the season. There's an indefinite time frame on his return after he had a surgery to remove part of his meniscus in his knee. So that is kind of an uncertain situation. Without Eric Bledsoe, it seems hard to imagine that the team is going to actually go on a deep playoff run. So even with the situation they're in now, most likely they would be in a position where they'd be slotted sixth, seventh, eighth going into the playoffs, and they're going to draw one of those top seeds. So that's going to be an uphill battle. The Most likely the team isn't really poised for a deep playoff run. It will definitely be fun to see and interesting to see, and there is some potential that they could pull off a first round upset and gain some momentum like that Golden State Warriors team. There is definitely the ability of this team to play streaky basketball, and they really play together. So some of that camaraderie they have, that almost familial type of feeling, can bring them together for that type of run. But what's more likely is that they just get a little bit of experience in a first round series that can help prepare them better for the future. There is very, very little playoff experience on this team, so any that they get is going to give them something to build on for the future. And that's what you would expect, but this team, like you had asked about earlier, was full of a lot of surprises, and so I wouldn't count them out at this point. I kind of counted them out, dismissed them earlier in the season, and they proved me wrong there. So